Hey guys, haven't been on here for a little bit. Haven't made any videos in a couple days, but I felt prompted. Kind of wanted to talk a little bit about parasitic attachments in this video. Parasitic attachments are a huge subject, right? I've heard one reader was talking about parasitic attachments in our food, and the reason they show up in our food is because of the fact that parasites exist everywhere, right? I mean, where are you going to find in lower states of consciousness? There's always going to be some kind of parasitic attachment there, right? I mean, things are feeding off of each other in so many different ways, and it's why it's so difficult to co-create, right? When you're co-creating with other people, all of the structures that we see nowadays are representations of different kind of spiritual parasitic attachments. All of it comes with it's all originates from a lack of a sense of self, right? Don't really know who you are. So if you assume you're this thing, like an accountant or an attorney or whatever, right? It could be anything, a software developer, then you're going to weigh yourself and have this misperception of who you are against somebody else and judge that difference in potential to it creates a parasitic attachment of some kind. So that's why money exists in the first place, because you're creating this difference of potential of everything around you. And then as you move out of those structures, we've created all these jobs, right, of like coaches, consultants, whatever. You still have to create some kind of perception in your mind that the person that you're looking at needs your help to achieve something that has been created by the parasitic attachments themselves. So that relationship, in a way, becomes a parasitic attachment of some kind. Very interesting, right? There's just so many different kinds and all of it creates an unconsciousness in the body. Right? Anytime we're feeding ourselves constantly, if we're just feeding on something and overindulging, then our body is having to break all that stuff down constantly and heal itself from breaking down all that energy that you're trying to pull into your body instead of naturally creating and then receiving. The creation and receiving cycle, when it comes to meditation and fasting, is what actually creates higher states of awareness. That's why I really started this class on Fridays. So if you guys are interested in this class on Fridays, I'll put a link in the description below. I think I put a link for it in the last video I did, because what I really want is just to ask you guys questions, right? Think about your own level of awareness. How do you feel about yourself, right? That's number one. And then how do you feel of yourself compared to what you have, what you believe you have or don't have? Because for one thing, we can try to create contracts with all this stuff that's created, right? We've been doing this for thousands of years, trying to create a contract to keep ourselves safe, right? So we create these contracts to try and bind ourselves with a piece of property or bind ourselves with some assets. And unfortunately, those things, if you're coveting that thing, there's a potential to lose it, right? So if you're actually creating a negative emotional attachment, because if you lose that thing, you end up with a negative emotional response when you lose that thing, not understanding that you're the creator. So let's say you run through an economic downturn and all of a sudden you lose your piece of property. There's actually a lot of times that happens for a reason, to raise the group collective's awareness to realize that all of it is just stuff and that we're co-creating all of it together. Now you could just stay to yourself and just grow fruit and vegetables on a piece of property and feed yourself. But, ideally you want to become part of a community that shares assets, and then you know, block people that just, you know, don't want to do that, you know, don't want to contribute to the community. You know, what are they contributing to the community? Or, but the community still has to take care of its disabled, elderly, and kids, right? So that's, you know, there's the public assistance system is pretty much that, right? But you don't want to enable people to abuse it, you know. Our system is so people look at our system and it is so effed up because, right, because it works on judgment of the mind, and understanding what's good for one person isn't, so a lot of times isn't good for the whole, right? Some people need healing. Some people need more time to heal themselves. Some people are more healed than others. Some people have more awareness than others. And so the higher your level of awareness, the more you're able to heal the people around you in a better way. So, you know, it's like, I don't know. What do you what do you guys think? I love to ask questions, you know, and this is the reason why I created this Friday Zoom call. So if you guys decide you want to show up, you could show up for any Friday. It doesn't have to be this Friday. I think my calendar is set up so you can schedule 60 days out. So every Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, I'm going to have a Zoom call where we're going to talk about state of reality, how, you know, we are all source. So we're always talking to ourselves. Like right now I'm talking to myself and you guys are listening to yourself if you're listening to my YouTube channel, right? It's a part of yourself, and a percentage of it is unconscious and a percentage of it is purely conscious, right? This has a healing effect on the body depending on its level of consciousness or unconsciousness. Either if I'm unconscious, then I'm trying to pull your energy in a way, right? I'm trying to suck the life out of you. If I'm more conscious and I'm pouring my energy into you and telling you, you know, giving you encouragement, you know, and love, and you know, that's has a healing effect on the body because it's we would like to it's nice to surround ourselves with people that like to invest in us, right, energetically. And it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with energy, how much energy we're pouring into each other, and then that's what we receive. So always think of this place or this unified field as that, pouring your energy into one another and then being open to receive, because that's ultimately what we're all here to do. You know, if we try to mix it up and change it in our mind to something else, then we'll fall into some kind of unawareness that tries to compete with the vessel standing next to us, you know, or create a situation where we feel like we need to draw energy from somebody else or we're not going to survive, right? That feeding energy instead of naturally providing and then receiving what it is that we are providing, right? And if we're providing from an open heart and a healed heart space, then it's not trying to protect itself as much, right? I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, so parasitic attachments happen in a lot of different ways. You can even be emotionally attached to food, right? And, you know, science has shown that the more fasting actually allows your body to heal in a lot of ways. It allows your cells to recoup from constantly breaking down different energy in the body. And then, of course, if we're eating less, we're going to have less exposure to potential parasites in the body. Parasites are never good, right? Not good for your gut. I think eventually we'll probably get to a place, and that's just kind of something that I've intuitively seen, that, you know, we've got groups of people they're going to start co-creating together that can self-manage, right? Not trying to feed off of one another, but kind of co-create together in equality and create group decision making. You know, until we do that, we're never going to start creating devices that free us from the system that we're living in. The system we're living in is built intentionally to make you dependent on it. Now, until we start co-creating together, we're never going to get to start creating a system that frees the individual. You know, if you're creating things that make somebody dependent on what it is you're creating, then what are we doing, right? You want to create something that makes somebody independent so that they can create whatever it is they want to create. So, I mean, ultimately, what are we creating, right? How many things are we creating? When you're creating phones that trigger the dopamine response, that get people pulled into their phones to pull them out of their creative energy, right? That's not healthy. That's completely, totally narcissistic. It's pure narcissism, right? When you're creating something that somebody has to have sitting next to them, or because it's triggering a part of the pleasure responses in the brain. I mean, we've created mental health issues for our children, right? And the reason is because we've created these giant organisms, and we've willingly put our energy into those organisms and worked for those organisms, and we've handed our power over to those organisms. I was talking to my brother yesterday. So Sunday, today's Monday. Sunday we had a 23-hour day. Right? We sprung forward. Well, unless you're in Arizona. If you live in the United States, we sprung forward yesterday. So we had a 23-hour day on Sunday that's balanced out by the 25-hour day. I think it's like the first Sunday in November or something like that, right? We were talking about how there's people in Congress that are actively trying to reverse that because people are tired of spring forward, fall back. Because the fall back schedule is to try and get more, I think, light in the morning, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't really thought about this before I started talking about it as far as the light thing goes. But if you think about it, you know, if I'm an individual and I'm booking times, almost everything that you book, because everybody almost primarily has a Gmail, some kind of Gmail or email system that is connected to Google in some way. All of those bookings happen on Google. So technically speaking, because we've handed so much of our power over to that one organism, if Google decided not to recognize fall back or spring forward or time or daylight savings time, they could say, we're not going to honor daylight savings time. Sorry. What would everybody do? Nobody would follow it. It wouldn't matter what kind of laws are in place. We've handed so much of our power over to one entity that it's basically controlling so much of what we do. We don't even realize it. Right now, I think Google and Amazon are probably two of the most powerful entities in the world. You could argue that Walmart is. I think Walmart's the biggest employer, right? So if Walmart just ceased to exist, for one thing, all these mom and pop stores would come flying back in. They'd have to, right, to carry groceries for the locals. But that's just one example where we're pouring voluntarily. You know, even if you hear people all the time say, "Oh, I've gotten out of the matrix." Well, technically you haven't. I guarantee you, anybody that says that, if you analyze their day, they're pouring some portion of their time into what we would call the matrix that controls this place. Unless you literally go out and live out in the woods. But a lot of times the way that those people support themselves by like building up a place for themselves is to put that on YouTube, right? This is Google. I mean, you're looking at Google to make a living, right? To get advertising money to make a living. And so part of that in and of itself has a little bit of narcissism attached to it, right? You're feeding a narcissistic entity in some way. Until we can come together as a group collective and co-create together in a healthy way and create our own systems for interacting with each other outside of any kind of narcissistic system that prioritizes itself over the whole, then we will never truly be out of the matrix. Ever. And this is why I created these these Friday meetings to help raise the group collective to really understand what's going on here. And you're never going to have good co-creation unless you have if you have individuals that are living in insecurities of any kind and have a misunderstanding of who they are, then there's going to be a lack of awareness that's going to create a pulling energy on the people around them. So the last thing you want to do is partner with people who are, creating an imbalance in the energy around you. They don't know how to self-manage, right? They're pouring their insecurities out onto the people around them. So hope this makes sense to you guys. And then the question becomes, okay, well, what would that look like, right? What would it look like to work together like that? Well, think about how your energy goes out when you create. When you create, you have primarily a significant other. The one person that you love more than anything, you want to spend most of your time with. So that's the person you pour most of your energy into, and that's the person you would expect would give the most energy back to you. Now, from there, the next level would be your family structure, or basically about the 10 people that you have that you're closest to that you would spend the second most amount of time together with, right? So basically the group of capillaries, it's like a capillary in the body, right? A cluster of cells that are grouped together that spend the most time together. And then less time as you move outward. But your recreational time, and you should be able to, in your recreational time, be able to visit any other part of the body and spend time with it, right? Because now the time that you spend in the group structure, the family structure, is basically what you're doing for the community, right? What is that group doing for the community? What's it creating for the community? And then, you could be any part of the body. Doesn't matter. It could be more than likely, and we're in this huge transitionary period. So most of these clusters that are going to be able to do this are going to be the healers, right? The healers raising everybody's energetic state. And that's why we see coaches and consultants have had to try to figure out a way to get themselves in a better state. I have recently met somebody, I was just on a podcast last week with a hypnotherapist, and she admitted, she was the first one to admit that she's decreased her number of clients significantly, because those number of clients, she's realized she just needed to spend more time on herself, because the more time she was spending on herself, the more she was feeling better, the more her awareness was expanded, instead of constantly trying to ground out people's negativity. Because the thing is, and this is the dichotomy, right? We all want to spend time together, but at the same time, we don't want to create an unbalanced relationship between ourselves. And so that's what creates the need to separate, right? So ideally, and this is something that, because I've really been trying to push this to make the group collective more aware, is that if you create the right structure to begin with, it forces everyone within that structure to grow. And if they can't grow to where they can't self-manage, it's going to spit you out, right? You have to increasingly self-manage more and more and more. If it's structured correctly and you don't have any narcissistic relationships within the system, or somebody that has more power than somebody else, where power has been balanced, everything's been balanced, then you have to learn to self-manage. You have to, right? Because if you try to pull yourself up above the people around you because of your own insecurities, then the system's going to spit you out. Nobody wants to work around somebody that wants to lift themselves up above the needs of the people around them. So awareness, right? What's your awareness? How are you aware of you? What does it feel like? How does it feel like you need to pull from the people around you because of a personal insecurity? You want to get into natural, creative, and receiving cycles, right? And if you can do that as a group, then the group, you're going to create so much abundance. I mean, we've never seen something like this on this planet before. And what it would do is it would force if you start cutting off the rest of the organism, stop feeding your energy into unbalanced relationships, right? If you feel like you need, in order to survive, that you need to consult a business that's not treating each other equally, you're just feeding into that organism. It's perpetuating energy that has been perpetuated for millennia, right? We're living in a unified field that's happening right now. At any one point, you can disconnect yourself from a parasitic attachment and start moving forward. It's very hard to do because the parasite is hungry, and it wants to convince you in your mind that you need to keep feeding it. This could be self-doubt. This can be anything, right? So, yeah, large topic, huge topic. But I just wanted to try to clarify as much as I could. On Monday, I'm going to put the link to my Friday classes. If you guys would like to, hopefully those Friday classes will turn into something that can elevate the group collective. I would love nothing more than to start connecting with 10, 20, 30 people to start creating something. For one thing, what you're going to do is create the structure first, right? You have to create the structure on how we're connected first. And then as people can start flowing into it, then you can start building things. Then you can start building, not just software and how we're connected and how we're communicating. Then you can start building physical products that represent a healthy structure that get people, that enable people to free themselves from anything, right? Generative devices that you don't need to connect to anything, right? There's an infinite amount of energy at every point in time space. All you have to do is know how to access it. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day. And we'll catch you on the next one.